Okay, welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries. I'm David Lizerbram, here with my co-host.
Andrew Keatts.
And we're here with a very special guest, Jon Wurster. You may know him from drumming from such bands as the Mountain Goats and Superchunk. And pretty much if you've ever been to an indie rock concert in the last 30 years, you probably saw him play. And he's also known for The Best Show and many other things. Say hi, Jon.
Hello, how are you?
We're good.
Good.
We're at Rock Docs Pod on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we wanted to have him on just to kind of talk about the subject that we know and love, music documentaries in general. Jon, you've seen a few of these things. What's your what's your take on the kind of the state of the union of music documentaries these days?
Well, there's a whole lot of them now. I started rapidly collecting them on DVDs and Blu-rays.
Okay.
About probably about 15, 20 years ago. And when I would tour overseas, like in Australia or the UK, I'd always be shopping for local ones. And so I kind of amassed a really big collection of music docs. And I don't know, I just love them, which is, I think, odd because it's what I do for a living. So you wouldn't think I would want to watch movies about what I do, but if it's something I'm interested in, I love it. And especially if it's a band I'm not interested in at all, or like a genre I don't care for, I love it even more.
Yeah,
I don't even know why.
What would you say? I mean, so watching it as like, studying the rest of the industry or what everybody else in your world is doing, what do you key in on as the sort of insights or the moments, the sort of revelations about some of these folks who you may not know that well? What do you like? What are the stuff in standard fare rock docs that you gravitate towards?
Well, I not finding out, but I like realizing that a lot of these people who are incredibly successful and famous have the same issues that we normals have, and it's even worse. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't seek the spotlight as furiously as they do. But so that's always really interesting. And I love, like, if I'll buy a music bio or something, I always go right to when it falls apart, like their lowest point. Yeah. So I really like docs with those sort of elements to them. When things just get horrible, and then hopefully they can come back, and there's usually a positive ending. But my favorite might even be my favorite movie of all time. It's my favorite documentary, and it's got a musical element to it. Is this movie called Overnight, and it's the story of the guy that directed Boondock Saints, which is like kind of like a Reservoir Dogs sort of film. Anyway, he has a band also, and he gets a huge movie contract writing this movie. Harvey Weinstein signs him. And he also has a rock band called The Brood, and they get a major label deal. And of course, like, it all goes immediately to his head, and he alienates everybody, and it goes downhill and downhill, and it never really gets back. But I can't recommend Overnight more.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It sounds like a good one.
Yes. Oh, also on that same tip, one of my favorites of all time, it is called Kiss Loves You. And it's a documentary about the lowest point of Kiss's years. So it's like early 90s. So I think we're talking like 90 to when they got back together. And it's not they aren't in it at all. It's all about fans.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like these people are diehards. They will live and die for Kiss, but there's only a few thousand of them at this point.
It's like,
and
nostalgia hasn't
Yeah.
Nostalgia hasn't brought them back yet, but there's
Not
still
yet,
a few
no.
people that never left, and they're holding
Yes.
on. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the
Yeah,
very
I-
end, they do come back, and the tribute bands they followed throughout this documentary are super upset because now there's no business.
Yeah, I a lot of times I do wish that music documentaries kind of focused more on the fans. There are some like that really are fan focused. I mean, everything from Heavy Metal Parking Lot to even the Twisted Sister doc. I don't know if you've seen that one. We're going to be talking about that one soon, but it's a really great documentary. It really goes up to the point where they're successful and then cuts off. So, but a lot of that doc is about the like people that in the 70s around the like, you know, whatever New York area were just these diehard Twisted Sister fans before anybody outside of New York knew who they were. And it's like, who are these people who in 1977 just dedicated their lives to following, you know, Twisted? It's such a fascinating thing. And, you know, just almost any music documentary about, especially about a popular artist, I wish they would get a little bit into that flavor of who are their fans and what's the relationship between the artists and the fans. I'm, you know, I'm always fascinated about even the bands that you're, you know, that you're most known for. You know, they have such rabid fans. I mean, people who follow the Mountain Goats, you know, are and are just obsessed with every lyric. You know, what's that like for you? I know we're kind of stepping outside of the documentary, but just kind of what's that like for you to be on the inside of that and then encounter people who've, you know, just it means so much to their lives to obsess about the lyrics when maybe you're just like, I'm just hanging back and playing the drums, man.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, I love, I have a really interesting view of it because it's, you know, this sea of mostly young people and they're singing along to this guy that I've been riding around with all day, you know? So it's, there's a, it might've been a Charlie Watts quote or something. He's talking about Brian Jones and he's just like, you know, I go out there and all these girls are screaming at this guy who I just saw, you know, take a whiz backstage. So it's interesting because you do see both parts of it. You see the, you know, the excitement and the enthusiasm of the people, but then you also see the incredible mundaneness of everyday life on the road with that same guy.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few different docs that are sort of different both in subject matter and form than a lot of the ones that are flooding the market right now. And you mentioned, you know, there are just so many rock docs being produced and they're really polished and well done. What do you make of like the state of the rock doc world right now in terms of how many there are? What do you like the, you know, I think one thing we say a lot is that they're starting to become a little formulaic, both in what they decide to make movies about and how they make the movies. A lot of, especially the streaming services ones. What's your take on the rock doc industrial complex as it's developed?
Well, you're right. There's been a flood of them, and it's like, I don't know, it feels like a month doesn't go by where I'm just thinking, like I see an announcement about one, and really they get one, but
name names, John.
I can't think of what it was. It was something though. It was something very recently, but I love those ones. Like I said, I love ones on bands that I don't really know or care about.
Yeah.
There's this great documentary. I think it's only on Prime. It's called "Is Everybody Happy?" and it's just about this band we've never heard of trying to get a record deal from Michigan, and it's just it's fascinating to me. Just but like that's something great, I think, because it's unexpected. That to me that does deserve a documentary because it's something you don't really see in a movie like that. But so I don't know. They are formulaic, like you said. I love when I see one that is a little different. Like I saw the Bowie one the other day in a theater, and I liked that it was a lot of footage I'd never seen. No narration other than his own voice. No talking heads at all. But it really painted a great picture of him pretty much from Ziggy to the end. So I like that a lot, and I loved Questlove's Summer of
Summer Soul. Yeah,
Yeah, of Soul. That was amazing. I love that. And same thing. And I love that. It's funny because he's in so many of these documentaries. I loved that he was really not in that at all.
Right.
I think you hear him ask a question off camera, but that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would love for there to be more ones like that where it's like just a different sort of take on the now tried and true formula.
Yeah, it's kind of speaking of that. What is your Andy and I talk a lot about the tropes, the elements that are common that you see all the time, whether it's
Right.
somebody saying like the second he hit the stage, it was or that kind of thing.
Right.
But the talking heads, it's constantly a subject of conversation. When you see the Dave Grohls of the world, the Questlove, not to
Wait, they're in documentaries?
not to pick on the members of your fellow fraternity of drummers, but
right,
they do seem to show up a lot.
Just do Thurston then.
Yeah.
Thurston, Rollins, all these guys.
Ian,
like what do you think when you see these faces pop up? Is it, or does it make you kind of like, okay, we've seen this? Are you excited? What's your take on it?
It's like it's so expected now. There's nothing like I don't know. I don't want to hear those guys. I love those guys. I don't want to hear them talk anymore. So it's
Yeah.
I love when they get other people. Like I've been asked to be in a bunch of them, and if I don't have like a lot to say about the band or I'm not a fan, I'll just say I wouldn't have much to add. But I did hear a great story. I'm not going to name names. Of a guy who singer, songwriter, producer, and he gets asked to do that very thing, a talking head thing for a band. I can't even remember who the band was. It's a band we've never heard of, in my opinion, undeserving of a rock doc. And this guy, his take on this band was, well, I'll tell you, when you get songwriting of that quality, it's hard to surpass that. All bets are off, something like that. It turned out a friend of mine asked him about that, and he goes, I gotta be honest, I've never heard that band.
Oh, that's great.
Like, what is the motivation?
I don't know. I guess it was like, sure, I'll be in your thing.
Yeah.
It never came out.
That is awesome. Okay.
They should bring the like the ESPN hot take model to Rock Docs.
Right.
Get some talking heads up there who don't like the band.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Right? Some people in here to just be like,
yeah,
what do people see in this band,
Here's why I hate Oasis.
Yeah, I feel like if I was really ambitious, I could make like a YouTube like supercut of just like the famous talking heads from Rock Docs talking, and you don't even know who the band is. Like just cut
Doesn't
from
matter.
every piece and just kind of see them repeating the same bit over. Like Dave Grohl, love it. I love that you're enthusiastic about whoever it is, but like it does kind of become a little copy and paste. But that's kind of part of the charm. I don't know. I like it, but like Andy and I talk about. Like a really great one that we talked about recently was this documentary on HBO, Elvis Presley, The Searcher. And what they did with that one, I don't know if you've seen it or maybe not recently or whatever, but what they did, which was so great, was there's no video of the talk. Like you don't see the people talking. But essentially what happens is the narrator of the movie becomes Tom Petty, like where there's just so much that they got of him. And he's speaking so authoritatively about Elvis is that they basically made him the narrator. You get a good amount of Bruce Springsteen too, but it's really Tom. And you get this insight. I wasn't expecting to watch this and learn a lot about Tom Petty, but you kind of do get this insight into him as a music critic and sort of like what could have been if he hadn't died. Like maybe he could have pivoted into talking more about music that he loved and things like that. And so that's an example of one that we really latched onto, where the talking head like really brought a lot to the table and also in some way revealed something about themselves more than just like, here we go, here's another person sitting down and doing an interview, grinding it out. So
you just got to keep in mind what this was like in 1967, man. No one had ever heard anything like this before.
Exactly. So much of it. So okay. So do you feel like as a drummer that music documentaries tend to focus too much on the lead singer or maybe the guitar player? Do you watch them and go like, yeah, but I want to hear more from so and so? He's the drummer. He's great.
Yeah, I could say that about every band I love. I would instantly go to an interview with the drummer or the bass player, someone you just don't hear from. You know, I've heard from the singer enough. I know enough about the singer. That's why one of my other favorites is by this guy Winston Watson, and he was the drummer for Bob Dylan for years, and he put a documentary out about his entry into the band and what it was like, and it's really good. But that's one of the few drummer docs I know of. But yeah, I always want to hear from the other people. There's a great, it's a terrible term in the Aerosmith camp. You know, there's Joe Perry and Steven Tyler, and my understanding is the other guys are known in the world as the less interesting three.
Oh,
the LI3. So I always want to know more about the LI3 than the Stars. Always.
David has offered a theory in the past with Grohl and Questlove being so central to the rock doc universe that much like catchers in baseball seem to make the quintessential TV analyst, because
or manager,
or managers that, you know, they have the game out in front of them. They're the one guy that sees everything.
Right.
That drummers have some similar sort of perspective on being in a band. Do you buy that at all? What do you think?
I do. You're the drummer's in the back, but take it away and everything has fallen apart. You know, so the drummer definitely holds the key to what's going on stage, like the Rolling Stones. I think of Charlie Watts sort of as the leader, because it's, you know, he just sort of, he kind of was to me. But yeah, you have this view that's really interesting. You can see everything, including the audience and all the, you know, the side stage things too. So you get the whole perspective of everything.
Yeah.
But in terms of like why those guys are in them all, I think people just kind of go for known quantities, you know, like just in general. It's, you're just trying to appeal to as many people as you can, and I recognize that guy. I recognize her. You know.
Yeah.
I a lot of times one thing that we want when we watch these is like, we just tend to say like we wish it was longer. You know what I mean? We always want more. We're greedy, you know. We always want more, and especially like the, you know, the quintessential like 90-minute rock doc, which is great. We love that. We're a fan of it, and yet we're left wanting more. So, you know, that's another kind of piece. Do you feel like now we've gotten into the situation where you get back, you know, 9 hours, you get the Kanye one that was also like 8-9 hours. You're getting kind of more of these longer form rock docs. Do you have you kind of noticed that? Do you think that it's getting self-indulgent? Do you wish they would tighten it up, or are you also like one of these people who's like, just give me more of everything?
I think it depends on the artist. This, we mentioned Tom Petty a second ago. There's this great Tom Petty one that
sure,
Bogdanovich did, and it warrants, it's a 2 DVD monster, and so someone like that, yeah, I think he deserves 3.5 hours. Neil Young would. My memory is that Twisted Sister one's pretty long, but it's really interesting.
Kind of is, yeah.
It's real interesting. So I think it depends on the artist and their, you know, how huge their oeuvre is. Otherwise, I think an hour is pretty good.
I mean, the Bogdanovich Petty one, and we did an episode on that one, but like, I think it's a good example, because if you're an editor coming in and you're saying, all right, I'm going to look for some fat here, and I'm going to get this thing theater ready. The Petty in the studio with Roger McGuinn fighting with the industry guys is like such an easy cut. That's just not an essential part of his career. It's not an essential part of Roger McGuinn's career.
Right.
And yet, like, you learn more about Tom Petty in that 20
Absolutely.
minutes than you do the rest of the movie, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad that was left in, because it, I mean, you're never going to see footage like that of anyone, probably like that. And he signed off on it, and
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, and I'm sure he had a lot of battles like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he did. Right. And the other ones are kind of like played out in the press a little bit, like going at fighting the studio on raising record prices, or fighting for his contract. But like, that's like an intimate moment, fighting for his friend on a record that no one really cares about or remembered,
Right.
And
Right.
it's rad. So if you have that stuff, it's easy to make the case for the 4-hour cut when
Yeah.
you're just getting like 10 more minutes of 5 different rock talking heads.
Right.
Maybe you can trim it down a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's one that I had heard that I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting, in that kind of the same thing, where it's a band that started shooting video of themselves, like from the first show. It's Spandau Ballet, and I think it's on Netflix. It's called the Soul Boys of the Western World, and I bring it up just because it's good and it's long, but they thought to archive everything and video everything like from day one. So that's a real interesting one, in that we were talking about just having great weird footage. That's a good example of that also.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good.
I kind of wonder what like the music documentaries are going to be like in 20 years, when you've got now everybody who's like trying to be a musician in any like pop, rock, hip hop, whatever it is documenting everything. Everything's on TikTok, whatever. I'm not passing a judgment on that. I'm just saying there is so much footage now of everybody, every human, that, including musicians, that there's just going to be, I would hope that, when Andy and I are still doing this podcast in 20 years, God willing, inshallah, that we will, that we'll be able to mine this footage, and it'll be really interesting. Whereas right now it'd just be like, okay, another TikTok of so-and-so, great, whatever. But I feel like we're going to have a golden age of rock docs in a few years with all this footage. That's my kind of dream about it. But I don't know.
You're right.
On the other hand, the rarity of it, when you find something
Yeah.
from somebody 20, 30 years ago that just happened to be captured on film, that maybe that's what makes it special. Maybe that's what makes that Roger McGuinn element so special. I don't know. I'm of two minds.
Yeah, like that Bowie doc I saw the other night. There was so much stuff I'd never seen, and you're just so excited to see it because you've heard the music of whatever that '78 tour, but I've never seen it before. And so just like to see what it looked like is amazing. I love the surprises like that.
Yeah. So we one of the movie in your article, Heavy Metal in Baghdad. What do you remember about that movie when you saw it the first time? I actually hadn't seen it 15 years ago when it came out.
Right.
But it was a big deal. It certainly made a mark. What do you remember about it?
Well, I remember it's these kids who are just like kids anywhere. They're hardcore metaloids, and they're trying to get rolling like any band anywhere and trying to play shows. Unfortunately, there's massive shelling going on around them, and so it's just I felt like that was just a great testament to to the love of not even music, but of just doing anything. Like you're so into this that you're willing to essentially risk your life to play a show. My memory is like there's like a shelling during their show or something, like with blown out glass, and so it's it's definitely a one of a kind documentary. I don't know of any other documentaries that have bands playing and there's a war going on in out the window.
Yeah, I just actually heard there's one that's coming out now. I'm not sure if it's out yet. I haven't seen it, but it seems like a similar format. But I might get this wrong, but I think it's like about an all-female metal band in Syria or some other kind of really similar situation that maybe is kind of inspired by or something. But I just read about it and I'm like, okay, keep an eye out for that because that. I guess that genre, which is a mini genre of metal bands in war zones, is probably something that is never going to get boring. You're always going to
right.
get something, some human interest happening there. So we'll keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah.
What about, do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but are there any oddities or untapped areas of music history that you think are sort of ripe for some sort of documentary exploration?
Well, it's funny. I always think of this band I played, and this is the first thing that comes up whenever I think of there should be a documentary on this. It's a band. It's over there. A band I played with for about 9 months when Superchunk went on hiatus. So this is like 2004, I think, or 3. And they're called Marah, Marah. You've never heard of them. They made several records, 2 brothers. It's like just like Oasis, but without any of the success. And hope they don't hear this, but fascinating guys, like self-educated, Philly to the bone. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard the Philly Boy Roy character, but there's some of those guys in there. But they were cool guys, but like just always shooting themselves in the foot. And I would love for there to be a documentary on them, because I think it would hold up for an hour and a half. I think it's a great story. But what else would be interesting? I saw a documentary, and I don't know if it ever came out because of music rights, but I saw it at South by Southwest at least 20 years ago, and I think it was called Tribute, and it was about these, I think, 4 or 5 tribute bands. One was a Monkees tribute band, one was Queen, one was Kiss, and something else. And it was so good. It was so great. Just the struggles of this band, and they lose their personalities. One guy goes nuts playing Gene Simmons. And like, I love that movie. And I guess, because it was all these giant songs in it, they couldn't afford the syncs or
that
whatever.
Could be pretty expensive for 4 monster bands like that. Yeah.
But like, I could watch a tribute band festival, for an entire week. Just like, I want to know everything.
It kind of reminds me of the Journey one, Don't Stop Believing, about that guy from Malaysia or Indonesia or something who like becomes the new Steve Perry. It's such a fascinating story about this guy's life, who's just like singing Steve Perry in karaoke bars for like tips and living on the street, and just becomes the guy. As I recall, when they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he was the guy.
It's like that Mark Wahlberg movie, except like more interesting. Like if the Hollywood screenwriters had a little bit more creativity.
Would you be welcome to the idea of a rock doc being made about one of the bands that you're, whether it's Superchunk or Mountain Goats? Like, I don't know if there's ever been any talk, or there's something you want to reveal or whatever. I'm just saying, like, how would it feel as a, for a third party to come in and say, hey, I want to make a film about you guys and your friends and your peers and the people you work with?
Ooh, sounds awful. but there was a book that came out, an oral history of Merge Records. There's a lot of Superchunk in that, called Our Noise. So maybe that would be as close as we come to something like that. But I don't know. It's funny. I was with you until you said, and having other people talk about you. That sounds terrible. But
that could be the one where you just get people who hate the band.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, we won't put you on the spot about that. We got to ask you, I think, about a few of our other favorites. The History of the Eagles. Have you seen that one?
First, let me say, maybe my least favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
Probably watched it in its entirety 5 times.
Oh yeah. Easily, at least.
Yeah. Love it.
You're right there with us. We're
so good.
It's incredible. I like. It's another one of. It's like we're just and this is maybe to your point, David, about the rarity being what's so important, is like they hate each other so much, and it's so obvious. Yeah. And to have it on footage, you're just like, how do we have this footage of them despising each other in the moment?
Yeah, that audio is insane.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you when this is done.
I can't wait. I'm counting down the minutes, man.
Wait, yeah. Like, where was the microphone that caught that? It's so amazing.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you've never been in a band that hated each other that much, but there's got to be a tiny bit of familiarity there of, just having a rough day with people where you're like, yeah, that does happen.
Those two brothers I mentioned earlier kind of hated each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like you said, all Oasis, but without the success.
Yeah.
Okay, please, Rock Dock Industrial Complex, please, the Marat documentary. We got to make it happen.
We need it.
Andy, any other favorites that we usually discuss that you got asked?
What about these low budget documentaries that are like all over Amazon? I think what's the series?
I probably have not only watched them, I probably own most of them. There's like a trove of these quickie Dylan docs that are up there that are just someone sitting in front of an impossibly arranged drum kit behind them, I love all that. Even if they're trash, I still watch them.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on one of those. Yes,
we had the Joker Man on talking about which one? The one about Dylan in the 80s, and it was
so good.
It was so great.
They're great. They're so good.
Yeah, when you just have all you can afford is some British rock critics pontificating, you can't afford any of the real music.
And his talking heads are great, Dylan's, because like a handful of them just obviously just hate him too, and he's confounding them at every step, and they just hate it so much.
Yes, precisely. Let's see. What do we have any other? Some kind of this is Some Kind of Monster, Metallica. We did an episode on that the other day, and or a couple weeks ago now. It has not left my mind since then. It's just such another of these. Unbelievable that the footage exists for us. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's amazing that they allowed it to come out, just because it's so fucked with their image and their reputation of just being like these tough guys. And but I loved it. I thought it was, I hate to use this word brave, but it's incredibly brave for them to do that. And my memory is it did cost them, and that album people hated too, but I love it. And Dr. Phil Towell is one of the greatest characters of all time. There's that there are two amazing shots where like he's kind of just like throwing in an idea like over the shoulder, and then there's this great moment where they're finally rehearsing with Robert on bass, and like they like pull out a little bit, and Dr. Phil is kind of on stage with them. Like he's not like he's at
he's
level
edging his way onto stage. Yeah.
So I love that movie just because to watch his evolution or de-evolution. Throughout that movie, like they respect him, he's in charge, and then slowly it's like, why the fuck do we need this guy? And now he's in the band.
That's right.
That's really a movie where you can watch it over and over again, and every time you have a different favorite character. It's like The Godfather. I mean, it's like you can watch it just for Lars, then you watch it just to see how Kirk like uncomfortably squirms between these quarreling bandmates, and then there's so Bob Rock. There's so much there.
Bob Rock is. I love there's a moment you feel so bad for Kirk. There's a moment where it's like, guys, I think that when you say it just sounds like he's 6. It's so great. I think when you say there shouldn't be some traditional solos, I think that's bullshit.
It's
that's
real.
Right. He does
it's real. Mom and dad are fighting energy. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. It's nuts. And I love the audition process. I love like inside stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to watch.
Yeah.
All right, and then one of the most divisive movies in the Rock Docs history, Todd Phillips' Bittersweet Motel about fish. Have you ever caught that one?
No. It's a band I have no interest in, which is prime fodder for me. What's it called?
Bittersweet Motel. It's Todd Phillips early-ish in his career, right after he made the Gigi Allen movie.
Wow.
He went on tour with Fish for like a year, basically.
This is the 90s.
Oh, I gotta see it.
Yeah.
And
it's on YouTube. Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if I've heard Fish. It just looks like so the opposite of what I would like musically that I haven't even Like, I think I got 5 minutes into that Trey documentary that
Oh
came
yeah,
out
okay. You
several years ago.
I could understand that being.
Yeah, but I got to
being
see it. Does
funny.
it deal with like the fans at all? Because
Yeah,
that sounds interesting to me.
It does deal with the fans.
It does sound interesting, doesn't it?
I think David's review. David does not like this movie at all.
Andy, let's just to set the scene. Andy has seen Fish like 87 times. Is that right? What's your actual number? Do you know?
It was like 62.
Okay, I exaggerated.
It's okay.
And do they?
I'm not a big
like
fan.
4 hours.
Yeah, like 2.5-hour sets basically.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so they David does not like that movie. But if I recall, your review was that they could have just spent more time on just the crowd, because that stuff was what Todd Phillips was more interested in.
Yeah, the fans are really the fascinating part of that, and yeah, the subculture. Anytime you get into a subculture, like, I mean, I don't care if it could be something that I have no interest in or don't know anything about, but you know, when you get into people, you know, their kind of codes of behavior and what motivates them and kind of how they stepped out from the real world to be part of this. That's just a, you know, in any documentary format, that's just always fascinating. So, I don't know,
like
more
rockabilly.
of the fans. Yeah,
there's some good rockabilly documentaries. Like, I have no interest in rockabilly, but like, what makes someone just sort of go that far?
Yeah.
In the past, like, do they use current medicine?
Where do they draw the line? Like,
where? Yeah.
That's like in the movie. In the movie Ghost World, where she's like, I kind of thought about getting into a 50s thing, but then you got to get an old car, and I don't know, you know, it just reminds me of that. Like, boy, people really commit. Is there a documentary about the like LA area Latino obsession with Morrissey?
With Morrissey,
that's another.
Yes.
Okay,
there
I got to track that down.
I don't think I own it. I think I bought it and I thought it was really boring and I sold it. But it is fascinating.
So when you're on tour, are you going to record shops and looking for their obscure music doc collection?
I do, but there's so few out there anymore, and so few being made like in physical. All right, I'm gonna plug this right now. It's a movie called Golden Days. I think it only exists on DVD. You can probably still get it. It's about this band called the Damnwells, 90s alt rock band. Get signed, all goes to shit. But it's so good. It's really good. So I bring that up as an example of like a great find I found on the road. But they're very few and far between now, just because they don't make them much, and they probably don't sell anymore either. Like even used ones.
Yeah,
you know?
Probably not. Yeah,
I'm out there though, people. Put them out.
Put them out. Yeah, or put them out. Maybe it'll be like a hip thing to like put them out on VHS or something, right?
Yes,
like, you know,
it's
like
coming.
cassettes are cool.
Yeah, gotta be coming.
I feel
back.
like Quentin Tarantino could subsidize it or something. Make this happen. Yeah, another thing we should just have
I've been rocking a cassette in my car ever since I bought it at the War on Drugs show the other day, and let me tell you, like reacclimating myself to the act of like picking up a song in the middle, because that's when you turned your car off before.
Right. Yeah.
That is, you get to know the album in a way that you don't when you're constantly constantly at the beginning of a song.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So maybe okay. My thoughts now are okay. We want more about the fans, John. We want you to curate a obscure rock doc film festival. We'll fly out to North Carolina or whatever.
Let's do it.
We need to get you to go to a Fish show with Andy, and just really get into that whole vibe. We need to make all this stuff happen. I think that's just it's got to be. Final takes on. Okay, all the above. Andy, you got to make that one happen. Okay, final takes on music documentaries. John, this is your final. You can never say anything else about music documentaries. This is it.
This is it.
We're not having you back on, and nobody's going to ask you anything else. So this is it. This is your moment.
I own more of them than anyone on the planet.
Good.
Challenge.
Love it.
Challenge him.
Okay. Sadly for me.
That may not be a virtue, but it's a
right.
This is since this is just a audio medium, we should mention that throughout this, every time John has been recommending one, he's been holding up the physical copy of each of these movies. So he is demonstrating the depths of his collection.
He's unspooling the 35 millimeter canister, the whole thing.
That's right. I commit to the art form.
Yeah.
Okay. John, anything you want to share about where people can find you if they do have other questions about music documentaries or anything else that you want to discuss?
Same place I met you guys. I'm on twitter.com as
Mhm.
Jon Wurster, JONWURSTER. Same thing on Instagram. Don't follow me if you don't want to see horrific signs that people send me of
Yeah.
sexual
Deviancy.
Christian. The worst
It is
ones
amusing.
are when they'll send like a church marquee that's has a sexual connotation that the person who put the letters up doesn't realize.
Yeah.
You may be the only reason I still have Instagram because
Thank you.
There's nothing to recommend itself about that app, but yours is good. Okay, John, thank you so much. Listen to the Mountain Goats, listen to the Superchunk, listen to every band ever because he's been in it at some point.
The best
so
show.
You get your Jon Wurster.
Tune into the best
show. All that stuff. Yeah, thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about it. I appreciate it.
All right, that was Rock Docs.